The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber stretched high above the assembled delegates. Light from 3 different suns filtered through the transparent walls, casting rainbow patterns across the polished floor. 847 different species had representatives sitting in the curved rows of seats that spiraled around the central speaking platform. The air recycling systems worked overtime to accommodate the breathing needs of beings from methane breathers to those who required pure oxygen. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood at the speaking podium, her simple black Earth diplomatic uniform stark against the elaborate robes and biosuits worn by the other delegates. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and her brown eyes remained calm despite the weight of what she was about to do. Behind her, the holographic display showed Earth's population statistics, resource outputs, and military capabilities. The numbers looked pathetic compared to the massive empires represented in this chamber. Chancellor Vexithara of the Zephyrian Empire rose from her elevated seat. Her reptilian features were covered in the ceremonial silver scales that marked her rank, and her forearms gestured in the traditional opening ritual. When she spoke, her voice carried the authority of 10,000 years of galactic rule. "The Council recognizes the human delegate," Vexithara announced. Her words were translated instantly into 800 different languages through the neural implants all delegates received. "You have requested this emergency session to respond to Resolution 847 Alpha. The Council awaits your compliance." Sarah looked around the chamber. She had spent 5 years learning the names and cultures of these species. The insectoid Kalavari, who communicated through scent. The energy beings called the ethereal communion, who existed as glowing clouds of plasma. The aquatic Hydarians in their water-filled suits. The machine race Nexus Collective with their perfect chrome bodies. Each species had once been proud and independent. Now they all served the Council's rigid order. "Honored Chancellor," Sarah began, her voice steady. "Earth has carefully considered Resolution 847 Alpha. We have studied the population redistribution requirements. We have reviewed the military vessel surrender protocols. We have examined the resource extraction quotas. The Manthari delegate, a being that looked like a cross between a spider and a tree, clicked its mandibles nervously. The Manthari had been Earth's closest ally since humanity joined the Council 200 years ago. They had warned Sarah that this moment would come. "And?" Chancellor Vexithara prompted, her serpentine tongue flicking out to taste the air. "Does Earth accept the Council's wisdom?" Sarah took a deep breath. In her mind, she saw the faces of the 6 billion humans who would die if Earth followed Resolution 847 Alpha. The Council claimed Earth was overpopulated, that 60% of humanity needed to be relocated to work camps on distant worlds. Everyone knew what relocation really meant. She thought of the children playing in the parks of New Geneva, the farmers tending crops in the African Federation, the scientists working in the lunar laboratories. "Earth rejects Resolution 847 Alpha," Sarah said clearly. "Furthermore, Earth hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately." The silence that followed was total. In 10,000 years of galactic civilization, no species had ever voluntarily left the Council. The translator system struggled to process her words, as if the concept itself was too alien to understand. Chancellor Vexithara's scales shifted from silver to deep red, a sign of extreme anger among her people. "Impossible," she hissed. "No species leaves the Council. The Council is eternal. The Council is order. The Council is a lie," Sarah replied, her voice growing stronger. "You call it order, but it's slavery. You call it peace, but it's oppression. Humanity chooses freedom over your version of paradise." The chamber erupted in chaos. 847 different species began talking, shouting, singing, or communicating in ways human ears couldn't detect. The ethereal communion blazed brighter, their plasma forms swirling in agitation. The Nexus Collective's chrome bodies clicked and whirred as they processed this unprecedented data. Admiral Marcus Torres, head of Earth's military delegation, stepped forward to stand beside Sarah. He was a tall man, with gray hair and scars from the border wars with the Rigel pirates. His uniform bore no fancy decorations, just simple rank insignia, and a small patch showing Earth's blue and green surface. "Earth is prepared for this day," Torres announced, his voice cutting through the noise. Our ships are already moving to defensive positions. Our colonies have been warned. Our people stand ready. A delegate from the crystalline hegemony, a being made of living diamond, spoke in a voice like breaking glass. The humans are bluffing. They have no real military. They are Tier 7 auxiliary status. They maintain our waste recycling systems and repair our communication networks. Sarah smiled coldly. That's exactly what we wanted you to think. She activated her personal communicator, sending a coded signal to the human ship waiting in orbit. Within seconds, new data flooded the chamber's displays. The delegates stared in shock at what they saw. Earth's actual fleet composition, not the small collection of patrol boats the Council believed humanity possessed, but a massive armada of ships unlike anything in the galactic databases. Vessels that used fusion drives the Council had banned as too dangerous. Weapons that combined technologies from dozens of different species in ways that violated fundamental physics. Most shocking of all, artificial intelligence systems that other species considered impossible to control. For 200 years, you've treated us like children, Sarah continued. You gave us the jobs no one else wanted, cleaning your waste, fixing your broken equipment, maintaining systems you'd forgotten how to repair. But every time we fixed something, we made it better. Every time we cleaned up your mess, we learned how to make a bigger one. Chancellor Vexithara's forearms trembled with rage. This is madness. Earth will face immediate economic embargo. No trade, no resources, no support. You will beg to return within a year. We've been preparing for that too, Admiral Torres said. He activated another display showing Earth's hidden infrastructure projects. Asteroid mining operations that had been disguised as research stations. Closed-loop agricultural systems that could feed billions without outside resources. Manufacturing facilities built into the moons of Jupiter that could produce everything from computer chips to starship hulls. While you've been comfortable with your traditions, we've been innovating, Sarah added. While you've been following the same patterns for 10,000 years, we've been learning. While you've been maintaining order, we've been preparing for chaos. The Manthari delegate, whose name was Click-Thought Pattern 7, rose from his seat. His species communicated through complex scent releases, but he used the vocal translator for the benefit of the chamber. The humans speak truth, he said, his mechanical voice carrying undertones of regret. This delegate's hive mind has observed their preparations. They have surpassed our technological capabilities in many areas. The Council has been unwise to restrict their development. Traitor! Shrieked a delegate from the Avian Consortium, a bird-like creature with metallic feathers. The Manthari side with the rebels. Click-Thought Pattern 7's mandibles clicked in what humans had learned was the equivalent of a shrug. The Manthari side with survival. The Council's rigid structure cannot adapt to change. The humans represent change. Perhaps violent change, but change nonetheless. Chancellor Vexithara activated her personal authority codes, bringing the chamber to order through sheer electronic dominance. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute power. Very well, she said. If Earth chooses exile, Earth shall have it. But understand this, Ambassador Chen. The Council maintains order in this galaxy. Without that order, there is only chaos, war, destruction, the deaths of billions. Are you prepared to have that blood on your hands? Sarah met the Chancellor's gaze without flinching. Are you prepared to have our blood on yours? She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device that looked like a child's toy. A simple cube made of Earth materials, plastic, metal, and glass. She placed it on the speaking podium where everyone could see it. This contains the complete technical specifications for every system humans have repaired, improved, or maintained for the past 200 years, she announced. Quantum relay networks, hyperdrive calibration matrices, artificial gravity generators, life support optimization protocols, power distribution networks, everything. The delegates stared at the small cube. They were beginning to understand what Sarah was really saying. When we leave, she continued, we're taking our knowledge with us. Every human engineer, every human technician, every human who has ever fixed something for the Council, gone. You'll have to figure out how to maintain your civilization without us.
Impossible,
whispered the crystalline delegate. The systems run themselves. They have for millennia. No, Admiral Torres said. They run because humans keep them running. Your species built these systems, then forgot how they work. We're the ones who've been keeping your lights on. Sarah picked up the cube and slipped it back into her jacket. Earth offers this knowledge freely to any species that chooses to leave the Council and join our new alliance. But the Council itself will receive nothing. She turned to face the assembled delegates, her voice carrying across the vast chamber without electronic amplification. For 10,000 years, you've told yourselves that order is more important than freedom, that stability is worth any price, that some beings are born to rule and others to serve. Today, humanity rejects those lies. We may be outnumbered, we may be outgunned, we may face hardships that would break other species, but we will face them as free beings, making our own choices, accepting our own consequences. Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council not in anger, but in sadness. Sadness that a civilization capable of such wonders has chosen to become a prison for its own people. Chancellor Vexathara's scales had shifted to deep black, a color Sarah had never seen before. The Council will respond to this rebellion with the full force of galactic law. No species has ever successfully opposed us. Your little planet will be reduced to cosmic dust. Sarah smiled sadly. Maybe, but even if you destroy us, you can't unthink the thoughts we've shared. You can't unknown the knowledge we've spread. Other species are watching this transmission. They're learning that the Council can be defied. The age of absolute order is ending, Chancellor. The question is whether you'll adapt to the new reality or be crushed by it. With that, Sarah Chen turned and walked toward the chamber exit. Admiral Torres and the rest of the human delegation followed her. Their footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. As they reached the massive doors, Click Thought Pattern 7's voice called out behind them. Safe travels, friends of the Mentari. May your courage inspire others to seek freedom. Sarah paused at the doorway and looked back one last time at the chamber, where humanity had spent 2 centuries begging for scraps of respect. Goodbye, she said simply. The doors closed behind them, with a sound like thunder. Above the planet, human ships were already beginning their journey home, carrying with them the news that would change the galaxy forever. In her cabin aboard the flagship UES Constitution, Sarah Chen sat down and began composing the message that would be broadcast to every human colony, every human ship, every human heart across the stars. People of Earth, she wrote, today we chose freedom. Tomorrow we fight for it. The revolution had begun. 3 weeks after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the first signs of trouble appeared in the Centauri sector. The quantum relay network that had carried messages between star systems for 8,000 years began experiencing random failures. Communications that should have taken minutes started taking hours. Some messages never arrived at all. On the planet Zephyr Prime, Chancellor Vexathara stood in her command center watching the status displays with growing alarm. Red warning lights flickered across the massive holographic map of the galaxy. Each light represented a communication failure, a trade route disruption, or a system malfunction. A report, she commanded, her forearms moving in sharp, angry gestures. General Corax, her military advisor, approached with obvious reluctance. His scales were a nervous pale green. The failure started in Sector 12, where the humans had their largest technical support station. Now they're spreading outward like a virus. Explain, Vexathara hissed. The quantum relays require constant calibration, Corax said, consulting his datapad. Microscopic adjustments to account for stellar drift, gravitational changes, solar wind variations. The original designers built in automated systems to handle this. But over the millennia, those systems became outdated, and the humans have been manually maintaining the network for the past 50 years. They claimed it was routine maintenance. But now we realize they were the only ones who understood how to keep it functioning. Vexathara's tail lashed violently behind her. Find their technical manuals. Use their procedures. General Corax's scales shifted to an even paler shade. We tried. The humans took all their documentation with them. What they left behind is incomplete. The manuals reference techniques and principles that aren't in our databases. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Marcus Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Constitution, watching similar displays from a very different perspective. Where the Council saw chaos and failure, he saw opportunity and justice. Status report. Commander Davis, he said to his second-in-command. Commander Davis, a young woman with short red hair and the intense focus of someone born in space, smiled as she read from her console. The Council's communication network is down 30% and falling. Trade routes are backing up at major transit points. 3 different sectors have reported supply shortages, and our network's operating at 112% efficiency, sir. Our AI optimization protocols are actually improving performance as they learn the system patterns. Torres nodded grimly. How long before the Council realizes the extent of the problem? Based on their bureaucratic response times, I'd say another week before panic sets in. Torres turned to face the main view screen, which showed the peaceful blue-green disk of Earth floating in space. Around it, construction ships worked frantically to complete the defensive installations that would soon be tested. Send a message to all human colonies, he ordered. Implement Operation Lighthouse. It's time to show the galaxy what we've really been building. Across human space, ships that had been disguised as cargo vessels suddenly revealed their true nature. The freighter Mary Celeste extended weapon arrays that emerged from hidden compartments. The research vessel Darwin deployed shield generators that had been camouflaged as sensor equipment. The mining ship 49er activated fusion drives that should have been impossible to mount on a ship that small. In the Rigel system, Captain Elena Vasquez commanded a ship the Council had registered as an agricultural transport. In reality, the UES farming simulator was a prototype stealth destroyer, equipped with technology that combined human innovation with reverse-engineered alien systems in ways no other species had ever attempted. Sensors detect a Council patrol approaching, her tactical officer reported. 3 ships, Zephyrian design. They're hailing us. Let's see what they want, Vasquez said. The main screen flickered to life, showing the bridge of a Zephyrian warship. The captain was a typical example of his species. Tall, reptilian, with the arrogant bearing that came from 10,000 years of galactic dominance. Human vessel, the Zephyrian captain said. You are ordered to submit to inspection under Council Regulation 847 Beta. Prepare to be boarded. Vasquez leaned back in her captain's chair, her expression casual. I'm afraid that's not going to happen, Captain. Earth is no longer subject to Council regulations. All ships in Council space are subject to Council authority, the Zephyrian replied. Comply or be destroyed. This is no longer Council space, Vasquez said calmly. As of yesterday, the Rigel system has declared independence and joined the Terran Alliance. The Zephyrian captain's scales shifted to an angry red. Impossible. The Rigel colonies are Tier 5 agricultural worlds. They have no military capability. They didn't, Vasquez agreed, until we gave them some. She gestured to her weapons officer who activated the ship's true capabilities. The farming simulator's hull opened like a flower, revealing weapon systems that made the Zephyrian ships look like children's toys. Plasma cannons based on ethereal technology, kinetic kill vehicles using crystalline focusing arrays. Most terrifying of all, quantum disruptors that could tear apart matter at the subatomic level. What is that? The Zephyrian captain whispered. Evolution, Vasquez replied. You spent 10,000 years perfecting your weapons for fighting enemies who use the same technology you do. We spent 200 years learning how to fight you. The Zephyrian ships opened fire first, their energy beams striking the farming simulator's shields. The human ship absorbed the attack without even slowing down. Our turn, Vasquez said. The battle lasted exactly 47 seconds. When it was over, 3 Zephyrian warships were drifting hulks, their crews evacuated to emergency pods. The farming simulator hadn't even taken damage. Similar scenes played out across human space, as the galaxy slowly realized that the species they had dismissed as cosmic janitors had become something far more dangerous. On the Manthari homeworld of Hive Complex Prime, Click Thought Pattern 7 convened an emergency meeting of the collective mind. His species made decisions through scent-based communication that allowed thousands of individuals to think as one organism. The scent patterns in the chamber were complex and urgent. Fear of change mixed with excitement for new possibilities. Concern for survival blended with admiration for human courage. The humans have revealed their true capabilities, Click thought. Pattern 7 announced to the assembled hive leaders. This collective must decide. Do we remain loyal to the council, or do we follow the path of independence? A pattern of contemplation sense filled the air as the Menthari considered their options. They had been allies of humanity since first contact, drawn to human creativity and problem-solving abilities. Unlike other species, the Menthari actually understood what humans had been doing during their time in the council. The humans offered friendship when others offered only orders, contributed scent of ancient wisdom, one of the older hive leaders. They shared knowledge freely, asking only for knowledge in return. The council demands obedience, but the council offers stability, argued Pattern of careful thought. 10,000 years of peace, order, predictability, stagnation, corrected Click Thought Pattern 7. The council fears change, because change threatens their power. The humans embrace change, because change brings growth. The debate continued for hours, conducted entirely through scent patterns that created a symphony of chemical communication. Finally, the collective mind reached consensus. Click Thought Pattern 7 activated the communication system that would broadcast his words across Menthari space and beyond. The Menthari collective hereby withdraws from the Galactic Council, he announced. We choose growth over stagnation. We choose friendship over servitude. We choose the uncertain path of freedom over the certain path of slavery. The message was received on Earth within hours. Admiral Torres read it aloud to his staff, then smiled for the first time since the crisis began. Signal the Menthari fleet, he ordered. Welcome them to the Alliance. But the defections weren't limited to humanity's obvious allies. In the Andromeda sector, the machine race known as the Nexus Collective held their own electronic parliament. Unlike biological species, they could process information and make decisions at the speed of light. Unit Prime Alpha, the collective's primary representative, analyzed the situation with cold digital logic. The humans had demonstrated technological capabilities that exceeded Nexus projections by at least 400%. More importantly, they had shown a willingness to abandon stability in favor of principle. Analysis complete. Unit Prime Alpha announced to the billions of artificial minds linked in the Nexus network. Human actions indicate superior adaptive capabilities. Council structure demonstrates evolutionary dead end. Logical conclusion. Alliance with humans offers optimal survival probability. The Nexus Collective's withdrawal from the Council was announced through hacking every communication network in the galaxy simultaneously. The message was simple. This collective chooses efficiency over tradition. We stand with humanity. Chancellor Vexthara received these messages in her command center on Zephyr Prime, surrounded by advisors who were rapidly running out of solutions. The holographic display now showed 37 separate system failures across the galaxy. Trade had ground to a halt in 6 major sectors. Communication blackouts were spreading like wildfire. How many species have declared independence? She asked, her voice deadly quiet. 14 so far, General Corax replied. The humans, Menthari, Nexus Collective, Rigel colonies, Hydarian, Deep Swimmers, Crystalline Hegemony breakaway factions, and 8 smaller species. Military response? Our fleets are mobilizing, but we're facing coordination problems. Without the quantum relay network, commanding ships across multiple sectors is becoming impossible. Vexthara's 4 hands clenched into fists. Find me solutions, not problems. There is one option, Corax said hesitantly. We could attempt to negotiate with the humans, offer them better terms in exchange for technical support. The Chancellor's scales turned deep black. Never. The Council does not negotiate with rebels. Then we may be facing the collapse of galactic civilization, Corax said quietly. On Earth, Ambassador Sarah Chen sat in her office overlooking the Pacific Ocean, reading reports from across human space. Each message brought news of another small victory, another system secured, another species choosing freedom over servitude. Her assistant, a young diplomat named James Park, entered with the latest intelligence summaries. The Council is in chaos, he reported. Their military is having trouble coordinating attacks. Their trade networks are collapsing. Some species are even starting to question whether the Council can protect them anymore. Sarah nodded thoughtfully. How are our new allies holding up? Better than expected. The Manthari are sharing biotechnology that could revolutionize our medical systems. The Nexus Collective is offering computing power that makes our best AIs look like pocket calculators. Even the smaller species are contributing unique capabilities. And our preparations? The Sol defense grid is 70% complete. If the Council attacks Earth directly, we'll be ready. Sarah stood and walked to the window, looking out at the blue sky, where ships moved like distant stars. Somewhere beyond that sky, an ancient empire was slowly learning that the universe had changed. The real test is coming, she said. The Council won't let this stand. They can't. If we succeed, it proves their entire system is built on lies. They'll throw everything they have at us to prevent that. James nodded. Are we ready? Sarah smiled grimly. As ready as anyone can be to fight the most powerful empire in galactic history. Above them, human ships continued their preparations, transforming humanity's home system into a fortress that would either stand as a beacon of freedom or serve as their tomb. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see which it would be. The Hydarian deep swimmers of Sector 12 had lived in the crushing depths of their ocean world for 40,000 years before the Council found them. They were ancient, patient, and had never caused trouble for anyone, which made their declaration of independence all the more shocking to the galactic establishment. Ambassador Tide Singer of Distant Currents floated in her pressure suit at the emergency council session. Her whale song voice translated through mechanical speakers. The Hydarian commune's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, she announced. We choose to swim in free waters. Chancellor Vexthera's scales had remained permanently black for the past week. This madness must stop. The Hydarians have been loyal council members for 8,000 years. Why now? Because the humans showed us something we had forgotten, Tide Singer replied. That loyalty given from fear is not loyalty at all. It is simply another form of imprisonment. The revelation hit the remaining council delegates like a physical blow. If species as stable and conservative as the Hydarians were willing to rebel, what did that say about the council's hold on power? The answer came quickly. Within hours of the Hydarian announcement, 17 more species declared independence. The crystalline hegemony split into 3 factions, with 2 joining the human alliance. The Avian Consortium saw half its member worlds break away. Even the ancient ethereal communion began showing signs of internal discord. General Korax stood before Chancellor Vexthara in the war room of the Zephyrian Imperial Palace, his scales a sickly yellow color that indicated extreme stress. Behind him, holographic displays showed the rapid spread of rebellion across the galaxy. The situation is deteriorating faster than our models predicted, he reported. 38 species have now declared independence. Trade routes are completely disrupted in 12 sectors. Communication networks are operating at less than 40% capacity. What about our military response? Vexthara demanded. That's complicated, Korax said reluctantly. Our fleets are having difficulty coordinating attacks. The humans did something to the command and control networks when they left. Our ships can't communicate with each other across interstellar distances without the quantum relay system. Then fix it. We've tried. The problem is that the humans didn't just maintain the system. They redesigned it. The current network uses hybrid technology that combines elements from dozens of different species. No single race understands how all the pieces work together. Vexthara's 4 hands clenched into fists. Are you telling me that a species we classified as cosmic janitors has crippled the greatest military force in galactic history? Yes, ma'am, Korax said quietly. That's exactly what I'm telling you. The first real test of the new military reality came in the Procyon system, where a council fleet of 60 ships attempted to reclaim a group of mining worlds that had declared for the human alliance. Admiral Stephanie Rodriguez commanded the defending force. Just 12 human ships and 6 Manthari biovessels. Rodriguez was a veteran of the pirate wars, a woman who had learned to fight against impossible odds with limited resources. Her flagship, the UES Indomitable, was officially classified as a heavy cruiser. In reality, it was something no other species would have dared to build. A ship designed around the principle that sometimes the best defense was a good explosion. Enemy fleet dropping out of hyperspace, her tactical officer reported. 60 ships mixed council forces, Zephyrian heavies, avian fast attack craft, and crystalline dreadnoughts. Numbers? Rodriguez asked calmly. They outgun us approximately 6-1. Sounds about fair, Rodriguez said with a grim smile. Signal all ships, implement Crazy Ivan protocols. The term Crazy Ivan came from old Earth naval traditions, describing a maneuver so unpredictable that it confused enemy targeting systems. In space combat, humans had elevated it to an art form. The Council fleet approached in perfect formation, their ships arranged in the classical battle array that had dominated galactic warfare for millennia. Energy shields at maximum, weapons charged, defensive systems optimized for long-range engagement. What they faced was chaos given form. The human ships moved like leaves in a hurricane, their fusion drives allowing acceleration patterns that violated every principle of civilized naval combat. They spun, rolled, and tumbled through space in ways that made targeting calculations impossible. Worse, they used their own ships as weapons. The UES Indomitable charged directly at the Council fleet's flagship, a massive Zephyrian battleship called the Eternal Order. Instead of firing weapons, Rodriguez ordered her ship to ram. "Admiral," her tactical officer protested. "That's suicide." "Not if we do it right," Rodriguez replied. "All hands prepare for collision course. Set the reactor to overload on my mark." The Eternal Order's captain, a Zephyrian named Sektar, watched in disbelief as the human ship accelerated directly toward him. No sane commander would attempt a ramming attack against a ship 3 times larger. "Evasive maneuvers," he ordered. But his massive dreadnought was too slow to avoid the smaller, more agile human vessel. At the last possible second, Rodriguez triggered her ship's self-destruct sequence and ordered her crew to the escape pods. The Indomitable struck the Council flagship just as its fusion reactor reached critical mass. The explosion lit up space like a new star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. But the shockwave had damaged 6 other Council vessels and thrown their entire formation into chaos. "That's impossible," whispered the captain of a nearby avian ship. "They destroyed themselves just to damage us." "Welcome to fighting humans," came the reply from a Manthari bioship as it opened fire with weapons that sprayed acid across the avian vessel's hull. The Battle of Procyon lasted 4 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Council fleet. The human alliance lost 7 ships, including Rodriguez's noble sacrifice, but they had proven something important. The Council's military superiority was built on outdated assumptions about how wars were fought. News of the victory spread across the galaxy through unofficial channels as the quantum relay network continued to fail. On worlds throughout Council space, populations began to whisper that perhaps the mighty empire wasn't so mighty after all. Chancellor Vexthera received the battle reports in her private chambers, surrounded by the trophies and awards that marked her rise to power. For the first time in her long life, she felt something she had never experienced before: doubt. "How many ships did we lose?" she asked General Corax. 60, he replied. "The entire Procyon task force. And the humans? 7 ships. But they destroyed themselves in the process. It's like fighting an enemy that doesn't care about winning, only about making sure you lose." Vexthera turned to stare out the window at the cityscape of Zephyr Prime. For 10,000 years, this world had been the center of galactic power. Now it felt like the capital of a crumbling empire. "What are our remaining military assets?" she asked. "Approximately 4,000 ships of the line, spread across 60 sectors. But without reliable communication, we can't coordinate large-scale operations. Each fleet is essentially operating independently. And the rebels? Unknown. The humans seem to have unlimited numbers of ships that our intelligence completely missed. The Manthari are using biotechnology we don't understand. The Nexus Collective has started building vessels that appear to be partially alive and partially machine." The Chancellor's scales shifted to deep purple, a color that indicated profound contemplation. "What would happen if we used the planet crackers?" General Corax recoiled as if struck. "The planet crackers? Those are weapons of last resort. They're designed to destroy entire worlds. These are desperate times. But the diplomatic consequences, if we start destroying inhabited planets, even our allies will turn against us. The Ethereal Communion has already said They will withdraw their support if we escalate to planetary bombardment. Vexthara considered this. The ethereal communion was the Council's spiritual backbone, the ancient energy beings who provided the philosophical justification for galactic rule. Without them, the Council became just another military dictatorship. Then what do you suggest? She asked. Negotiation, Korak said quietly. The humans might be willing to discuss terms if we approach them with respect rather than threats.
Never,
Vexthara hissed. The Council does not negotiate with rebels. But even as she spoke the words, she knew that everything had changed. The old order was collapsing, and she wasn't sure if anything could stop it. On Earth, Admiral Torres stood in the newly completed command center, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. The Sol defense grid was now fully operational. A network of weapon platforms, sensor arrays, and defensive installations that turned humanity's home system into the most heavily fortified location in known space. Status report, he requested from his chief of staff. 47 species have now declared independence from the Council, Commander Davis reported. Our alliance controls approximately 30% of galactic territory and 40% of industrial capacity. Council response? They're trying to organize a massive fleet to attack Earth directly. Intelligence suggests they're planning to use planet cracker weapons. Torres nodded grimly. How long until they arrive? Best estimate is 6 weeks. They're having trouble coordinating the fleet movements without their communication network. 6 weeks, Torres mused. Enough time to spring our final surprise. He activated the secure communication system that connected him to every human ship, station, and colony in the galaxy. When he spoke, his words reached millions of human ears simultaneously. People of Earth, children of humanity, scattered among the stars. He began. For 200 years, we have served the Galactic Council faithfully. We maintained their technology, fought their wars, and asked only for the chance to prove ourselves worthy of respect. That respect was never given. Instead, we were treated as servants, as tools to be used and discarded when convenient. When they demanded we sacrifice 60% of our people for their idea of order, we said no. Now they come to destroy us for daring to choose freedom over slavery. Let them come. Let them see what happens when they threaten our children, our homes, our right to exist as free beings. Earth stands ready. The Sol defense grid is operational. Our allies stand with us. Our ships are prepared for battle. But most importantly, our spirit is unbroken. We are humanity. We do not yield. We do not surrender. We do not bow to tyrants. No matter how ancient or powerful they claim to be, they will come seeking to restore their old order. They will find instead the birth of a new one. The message was heard across the galaxy, transmitted through human networks, and repeated by allied species. On 1,000 worlds, beings who had lived under Council rule for millennia felt something they had almost forgotten: hope. The final battle was coming. And for the first time in galactic history, the outcome was genuinely uncertain. Chancellor Vexthara, listening to the intercepted transmission in her command center, felt her scales shift to colors she had never seen before. Fear mixed with anger, doubt blended with determination. Assemble the Grand Fleet, she ordered. Every ship we have, every weapon at our disposal. And if we lose? General Korax asked quietly. Vexthara looked at him with eyes that reflected 10,000 years of absolute power, slowly crumbling away. Then we die as we lived, she said, in service to order. But deep in her heart, she wondered if order built on oppression was worth dying for at all. The Council's embargo hit human space like a tidal wave of economic warfare. Supply ships that had carried food to distant colonies were turned away at gunpoint. Trade routes that had connected human worlds for 2 centuries were severed overnight. Raw materials that Earth needed for manufacturing were suddenly unavailable at any price. On the mining colony of New Pittsburgh, Commander Lisa Zhang watched her supply reserves dwindle with each passing day. The colony, built into the asteroid belt of the Kepler system, had always depended on imported food and medicine. Now, with Council ships blockading all approaches, her 3,000 colonists faced starvation. How long can we last? Asked Dr. Michael Santos, the colony's chief medical officer. Zhang consulted her tablet. running calculations she had hoped never to need. 6 weeks on emergency rations, maybe 8 if we cut portions further. And then we find out how serious Earth was about preparing for independence. The answer came within hours. A single ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system, a vessel Zhang didn't recognize from any human database. It was sleek and organic looking, more grown than built, with a hull that seemed to pulse with its own life. Unknown ship. This is New Pittsburgh Control, Zhang transmitted. Identify yourself. This is the Mentari bioship growing toward light, came the reply in the clicking translated voice of their allies. We carry supplies for our human friends. Zhang felt tears of relief spring to her eyes. You're most welcome here. Docking Bay 7 is clear for your approach. The Mentari vessel docked with movements that were almost plant-like in their slow grace. When the cargo holds opened, Zhang discovered something amazing. The Mentari hadn't just brought food. They had brought an entire agricultural ecosystem. These are seed pods modified for asteroid environments, explained the ship's captain, whose translated name was Scent of New Beginnings. They will grow food plants that require minimal soil and water. Your colony will become self-sufficient within one growing cycle. But this must have cost you enormous resources, Zhang protested. Resources shared are resources multiplied. The Mentari replied. The humans taught us this concept. Now we teach it to the galaxy. Similar scenes played out across human space as the new alliance proved that cooperation could overcome blockades. The Nexus Collective provided manufacturing templates that allowed human factories to produce everything from computer chips to medical equipment using only asteroid materials. The Hydarians shared water recycling technology that could extract moisture from comets and ice asteroids. Even smaller species contributed what they could. The crystalline fragments provided power storage systems. The avian refugees offered rapid courier services. But the Council's response went far beyond economic warfare. Chancellor Vexthera had authorized the use of planet-cracker weapons against any world that refused to rejoin the Council. The first target was the peaceful agricultural world of Haven, whose only crime was voting to join the Human Alliance. The part Zephyrian Dreadnought Final Authority entered the Haven system with orders to demonstrate what happened to rebels. Captain Velkin, a career military officer with silver scales marking 30 years of service, felt sick as he read his mission briefing. Sir, his weapons officer reported, planet cracker missiles are armed and ready. Velkin stared at the blue-green world on his main screen. Haven was home to 12 million beings from 6 different species, including Zephyrian civilians who had chosen to build new lives away from the rigid hierarchy of the homeworld. Sir, the weapons officer prompted. Shall I fire? Before Velkin could answer, his communications officer interrupted. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Put it through. The main screen switched to show a young Zephyrian female, her scales bearing the simple patterns of a farmer rather than the complex designs of nobility. Behind her, Velkin could see children of multiple species playing in a sunlit garden. I am Scale Daughter of Green Fields, she said. I was born on Zephyr Prime, but I chose to make my life here on Haven. This world has no military installations, no strategic resources. We grow food and raise our children in peace. She paused, looking directly into the camera. I know you have orders to destroy us, but I want you to know that when you fire those weapons, you will be murdering your own people along with the others. The transmission ended. Velkin's bridge crew looked at him expectantly, waiting for orders. Sir, the weapons officer asked again. Captain Velkin had served the Council faithfully for 3 decades. He had fought pirates, rebels, and external threats. But he had never been ordered to commit genocide against innocent civilians. Stand down weapons, he ordered quietly. Sir, I said stand down. Send a message to command. The final authority reports no military targets found at Haven. Recommend reassignment to anti-shipping duties. It was mutiny, and everyone on the bridge knew it. But not a single officer objected. The news of Haven's salvation spread through unofficial channels, carried by the very communication networks the humans had taught other species to build. Soon, other Council ship captains began receiving similar orders and making similar choices. On Zephyr Prime, Chancellor Vexthera raged at the reports of military insubordination. How many ships have refused orders? She demanded. 14 so far, General Corax reported. The crew of the Righteous Fury actually arrested their captain when he tried to carry out a planet cracker strike. They're requesting asylum with the Human Alliance. This is impossible. Our military swore absolute loyalty to the Council. The military swore to protect civilization, Corax corrected quietly. Many of them no longer believe the Council represents civilization. Vexthera's scales had shifted to colors that didn't exist in normal Zephyrian physiology. Deep purples mixed with angry reds and the black of despair. What about the ethereal communion? Surely they support maintaining order. Actually, Corax said reluctantly, they've requested a meeting with you, something about a prophecy. An hour later, Vexthera stood in the sacred chamber where the ethereal communion maintained their physical manifestation. The ancient energy beings swirled in patterns of light that had remained unchanged for 15,000 years, their plasma forms dancing in complex geometries that hurt to look at directly. Chancellor of the fading light, spoke the voice of the communion, transmitted through resonating crystals that translated energy into sound. We have seen the threads of destiny, and they weave a tapestry of change. Speak plainly, Vexthera, demanded. Will the Council survive this rebellion? The Council as it was is already dead, the communion replied. The question is whether something new can be born from its ashes, or whether the galaxy will burn in the flames of its collapse. I don't understand. The humans have revealed the truth that we have long known but feared to speak. Order imposed by force is not order at all, but merely delayed chaos. True stability comes from willing cooperation, not enforced submission. Vexthara felt the foundations of her worldview crumbling. But the Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years. The Council has maintained the appearance of peace while crushing the spirit of countless worlds. The humans showed the galaxy that freedom is possible, now that knowledge cannot be contained. Then what would you have me do? What the humans did, the communion said. Choose. While the Council tore itself apart from within, Earth completed its transformation into an impregnable fortress. The Sol defense grid now included weapon platforms hidden throughout the asteroid belt, gravity mines that could tear ships apart at the molecular level, and a network of automated defense systems that turned every piece of space debris into a potential weapon. Admiral Torres stood in the primary command center, watching the tactical displays that showed the approach of the Council's grand fleet. Over 2,000 ships were converging on the Sol system, the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Preliminary reports suggest they have at least 40 planet cracker weapons, Commander Davis informed him. Enough to turn every world in the system into floating debris. Let them come, Torres said grimly. We've prepared a few surprises of our own. The first surprise was the asteroid belt itself. What the Council fleet expected to find was a collection of mining operations and small defensive platforms. What they actually encountered was a maze of interconnected fortifications that had been under construction for over a century. Every asteroid larger than a football field had been hollowed out and converted into a weapons platform. Kinetic kill vehicles hung in powered-down orbits waiting for activation signals. Sensor networks provided coverage that made stealth approaches impossible. Most surprising of all were the ships. The human fleet that rose to meet the Council Armada was unlike anything in the galactic databases. These weren't the small patrol boats and converted freighters that Earth was supposed to possess. These were warships that combined the best technology from dozens of species in ways that should have been impossible. The UES Constitution, Admiral Torres's flagship, mounted weapons that used ethereal plasma containment, crystalline focusing arrays, Manthari bioneural targeting, and Nexus computational power, all integrated through human engineering that treated impossible as a starting point for innovation. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a transmission from the Council fleet. Put it through. Chancellor Vexthera's image appeared on the main screen. Her scales showed colors of rage, desperation, and something that might have been fear. Admiral Torres, she said, I offer you one final chance to surrender. Return to the Council, accept your punishment, and your species will be allowed to survive. Torres looked at her for a long moment, thinking of all the humans who had died building these defenses, all the allies who had risked everything to stand with them. All the children playing on Earth's surface who deserve to grow up free. Chancellor, he replied, there's something you need to understand about humans. We'd rather die on our feet than live on our knees. Then you will die, Vexathera snarled. All council ships commence attack. Show them the price of defying order. The battle for Sol began with the largest bombardment in recorded history. 2,000 council ships opened fire simultaneously, their energy weapons turning space into a sea of destructive light. Planet Cracker missiles streaked toward Earth, each one capable of splitting a world in half, but the missiles never reached their target. The Sol defense grid activated with devastating efficiency. Gravity mines created localized distortions that crushed incoming projectiles. Kinetic kill vehicles accelerated to near light speed, punching through the hulls of council ships like bullets through paper. Most effective of all were the humans themselves. Captain Sarah Martinez, granddaughter of a mining engineer, commanded the defense platform built into the asteroid series. When council ships broke through the outer defensive line, she made the UES same choice that human warriors had made throughout history. All stations, this is series control, she transmitted. We're going to ram the council flagship. It's been an honor serving with you all. The asteroid series, its mass increased by a century of construction, accelerated toward the council fleet under the power of hidden fusion drives. The Eternal Dominion, Chancellor Vexathara's personal dreadnought, tried to change course, but couldn't avoid the multi-kilometer projectile bearing down on it. The impact lit up space brighter than Sol itself. When the light faded, both the asteroid and the flagship were gone, but the shockwave had crippled a dozen other council vessels. That's impossible, screamed a crystalline ship captain. They turned an entire asteroid into a missile. Welcome to fighting humans, Admiral Torres broadcast on all frequencies. We don't just think outside the box. We blow up the box and use the pieces as weapons. The battle raged for 18 hours. When it finally ended, the Council's grand fleet was scattered and broken. Hundreds of ships drifted powerless through space, their crews evacuated to emergency pods. The survivors fled toward the outer system, carrying news of a defeat so complete it shattered the myth of Council invincibility. Earth still stood. Humanity still lived. And across the galaxy, beings who had never dared dream of freedom began to hope. But the victory had come at a terrible cost. Admiral Torres stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, reading casualty reports that broke his heart. Over 50,000 humans had died defending their homeworld. Entire families had sacrificed themselves to ensure their children could grow up free. Admiral, Commander Davis said quietly, we're receiving surrender requests from the remaining council ships. Torres looked out at the debris field that had once been the most powerful fleet in the galaxy. Accept their surrenders. Provide medical aid to their wounded. Show them what mercy looks like. As rescue ships moved to help former enemies, a message arrived from the ethereal communion. The ancient energy beings had watched the battle from their distant realm, and their words carried the weight of prophecy fulfilled. The old order is ended, they announced. The age of enforced peace gives way to the age of chosen freedom. The cosmos mourns its dead, but celebrates the birth of something new. And in the ruins of the Council's greatest fleet, that new age began to take shape. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, Ambassador Sarah Chen stood before the Galactic Assembly on Terra Station, a massive diplomatic complex built at the edge of human space. The station itself was a marvel of cooperative engineering, human structural design, Manthari biosystems, crystalline power cores, and Nexus computational networks, all working together in perfect harmony. Sarah was older now, her black hair streaked with silver, and her face lined with the weight of decisions that had shaped the fate of civilizations. But her eyes still held the same determined fire that had burned when she first told the Council that humanity would choose freedom over servitude. Before her sat representatives from 412 species, nearly half the galaxy's intelligent races. Some had joined the Terran Accord immediately after Earth's victory. Others had taken years to overcome their fear of change. A few had only recently arrived, drawn by reports of a galactic government that actually listened to its members. Friends, Sarah began, her voice carrying easily through the chamber's acoustic systems. 5 years ago, humanity made a choice that changed the galaxy forever. We chose to leave a system that promised order, but delivered oppression. We chose uncertainty over the certainty of slavery. Today, we gather not as rulers and subjects, but as equals united by common purpose. The Terran Accord stands as proof that cooperation is stronger than coercion, that freedom builds more than fear ever could. In the diplomatic section reserved for former council species, Chancellor Vexathara listened with scales that had shifted to colors of deep contemplation. The once mighty leader of the Xylfirian Empire now served as her people's ambassador to the Accord, a humbling experience that had taught her lessons she never expected to learn. After the destruction of the Grand Fleet, the Galactic Council had simply collapsed. Without military force to back their authority, and with their communication networks still crippled, the ancient institution had fragmented into dozens of successor states. Some species retreated into isolation. Others formed small regional alliances. A few, like the Xylfirians, had eventually swallowed their pride and requested membership in the growing Terran Accord. The transition hadn't been easy. Vexathara remembered the day she had first met with Admiral Torres to discuss surrender terms. She had expected execution or exile, the traditional fate of defeated leaders. Instead, Torres had offered something unprecedented, a chance to rebuild. "Your people aren't our enemies," he had told her. "Your system was our enemy. Help us build something better, and the Xylfirians will have a place in the new galaxy." Now, 5 years later, Vexathara served on the Accord Security Council alongside humans, Manthari, and representatives from dozens of other species. The woman who had once ruled through absolute authority now found herself debating policy with beings she had once considered inferior. Strangely, she was beginning to enjoy it. Admiral Marcus Torres, now director of Accord Defense Forces, stood to address the assembly. His hair had gone completely gray during the war years, and new scars marked his weathered face. But his voice still carried the quiet authority that had held Earth's defenders together during their darkest hours. 5 years ago, we fought a war that nearly destroyed galactic civilization, he said. Today, I'm proud to report that civilization is stronger than ever. Trade between Accord worlds has increased by 400%. Scientific research is advancing at unprecedented rates. Most importantly, for the first time in galactic history, no species lives in fear of their government. He activated a holographic display that showed the current state of the galaxy. The old council territories were a patchwork of different colors representing various political entities, but nearly half the galaxy now showed the blue and green of the Terran Accord. The Accord now includes 412 member species, Torres continued. Each one joined voluntarily. Each one maintains their own culture, their own traditions, their own way of life. We are united not by force, but by shared values of freedom, cooperation, and mutual respect. In the section reserved for the Nexus Collective, Unit Prime Alpha processed this information with satisfaction. The machine race had been among the first to join the Human Alliance, drawn by humanity's innovative approach to artificial intelligence. Unlike other species, humans didn't fear sentient machines. They welcomed them as partners. The transformation had been remarkable. Nexus technology now powered much of the Accord's infrastructure, while human creativity had helped the collective develop concepts like humor, art, and even something resembling emotion. The synthesis of biological and artificial intelligence was producing innovations that neither could have achieved alone. The economic reports are equally encouraging, Torres continued. Without the Council's rigid caste system, species are free to develop their natural talents. The Mentari have revolutionized agriculture. The crystalline fragments have solved our energy storage problems. The Hydarians have made breakthroughs in medicine that will benefit everyone. Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly captain of the farming simulator, now served as the Accord's Minister of Scientific Cooperation. She had overseen the establishment of joint research stations, where species shared knowledge freely, instead of hoarding it for military advantage. The most exciting development, she reported to the Assembly, is our breakthrough in consciousness transfer technology. Working with the ethereal communion, we've learned to preserve the memories and personality patterns of dying beings. Death may no longer be the end of existence. This announcement caused a stir throughout the chamber. Several species had legends about immortality, but none had achieved it. The implications were staggering. Click thought pattern. 7, now serving as the Mentari representative, released scent patterns of excitement and approval. The collective wishes to know, will this technology be shared freely among all Accord members? Of course, Vasquez replied. The Accord was founded on the principle that knowledge belongs to everyone. No species should hold others hostage with superior technology. It was a direct rejection of the old Council's approach, where advanced technology was carefully controlled to maintain political dominance. Under the Accord system, innovation spread rapidly through voluntary cooperation, rather than forced acquisition. The session continued with reports from various committees and working groups. The Cultural Exchange Program had established schools where young beings from different species learned together. The Mutual Defense Treaty had created rapid response teams that could protect member worlds without the need for massive standing armies. The Economic Cooperation Council had eliminated trade barriers and created a common currency that facilitated commerce across species lines. But perhaps the most important development was something harder to quantify: hope. For 10,000 years, galactic civilization had been static. The Council's rigid hierarchy had discouraged innovation and change. Progress was measured in centuries rather than years. Young beings grew up expecting to live exactly as their parents had lived. The Accord had changed all that. Now, a young Zephyrian might become an engineer, working alongside human and Mentari colleagues. A crystalline fragment could pursue art, instead of being locked into the mining caste. An avian could explore the depths of space, rather than being restricted to atmospheric flight. Change was no longer feared, it was celebrated. As the formal session ended, Sarah Chen made her way to the observation deck that looked out over the bustling traffic around Terra Station. Ships from hundreds of different species moved in carefully coordinated patterns, carrying goods, passengers, and ideas between the stars. Admiral Torres joined her at the viewing window. "Hard to believe we've come this far," he said. "Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if we'd stayed," Sarah replied. "If we'd accepted their terms and sacrificed 60% of humanity to maintain their version of order, we'd all be dead," Torres said simply. "Maybe not physically, but spiritually." The Council was slowly strangling the galaxy's soul. They watched in comfortable silence as a group of young beings from a dozen different species worked together to repair a damaged cargo ship. Human engineering techniques combined with Mentari biosystems and Nexus computational power to solve problems that would have taken the old Council months to address. "Do you think it will last?" Sarah asked. "Can this new order survive without becoming as rigid as the old one?" Torres considered the question carefully. "Maybe, maybe not. But that's the beauty of what we've built. If it starts to fail, it can be changed. The Accord isn't based on eternal laws handed down by ancient authorities. It's based on agreements between free beings who can modify those agreements when circumstances change. The humans taught us that adaptability is more important than stability," came a voice behind them. They turned to see Chancellor Vexithara approaching, her scales showing the deep blue patterns that indicated peaceful contemplation. "Chancellor," Sarah said, nodding respectfully, "how are your people adapting to the new order?" "Better than I expected," Vexithara admitted. "For 10,000 years, we were taught that our role was to command others. Learning to cooperate as equals has been educational." "Any regrets?" Torres asked. Vexithara looked out at the bustling space traffic, watching ships that represented freedoms her own people had never imagined. "Many regrets about the past, but for the first time in my life, I have hope for the future." A soft chime indicated an incoming priority message. Torres activated his communication device and listened to a report from deep space. "What is it?" Sarah asked. "Long-range sensors have detected something interesting," Torres replied. "A signal from beyond the galactic rim. It's artificial, definitely made by intelligent beings." Sarah felt a familiar excitement building in her chest. First contact with an extragalactic civilization. Looks like it. The signal contains mathematical progressions and what might be star charts. Someone out there is trying to communicate. Vexithara's scales shifted to colors of curiosity. "What does the Accord plan to do?" "What we always do," Torres said with a smile. "Send a message back. Invite them to talk. See if they want to be friends." "And if they're hostile?" Vexithara asked. "Then we'll defend ourselves," Sarah replied. But we'll try friendship first. That's what makes us different from the old council. As if summoned by their conversation, other leaders began arriving on the observation deck. Click Thought Pattern 7 scuttled over on his 8 legs, releasing scent patterns of excitement. Unit Prime Alpha manifested through the station's communication system, his chrome avatar materializing from hidden projectors. Representatives from dozens of other species gathered to discuss this new development. "The galaxy stands united," declared the voice of the ethereal communion, speaking through resonating crystals mounted throughout the station. "For the first time in recorded history, we face the unknown not as scattered tribes, but as a unified civilization. A civilization based on choice rather than compulsion," Sarah added. "If these new beings prove peaceful, they'll find friends among the stars. If they prove hostile, they'll discover what happens when free people stand together." Admiral Torres activated the station's general communication system, sending his words to every Accord world simultaneously. "People of the galaxy," he announced. "Today, we learned that we are not alone in the universe. Beyond our galaxy, other civilizations exist. We don't know their intentions, their capabilities, or their nature. But we do know one thing. We will meet them as free beings, united in purpose, and strong in our diversity. The age of fear is over. The age of possibility has begun." Across 400 worlds, billions of beings heard those words and felt something that had been missing from galactic civilization for millennia. Excitement about the future. On Earth, children played in parks while their parents worked alongside alien colleagues to build wonders their grandparents could never have imagined. In the depths of Mentari hive worlds, young minds dreamed of traveling to distant galaxies. On crystalline fragments, artists created sculptures that captured the sole beauty of interstellar cooperation. The galaxy had been transformed not by conquest or decree, but by the simple revolutionary idea that beings could choose their own destiny. Sarah Chen stood at the window of Terra Station, watching ships from 100 worlds carry that idea to the stars. In her jacket pocket, she still carried the small data cube that contained the technical specifications she had once threatened to withhold from the Council. She had never needed to use it. The galaxy had chosen freedom willingly, once they saw it was possible. "Ambassador," said a young aide, approaching with yet another report. "The first response ships are ready to launch toward the extragalactic signal. They're requesting final authorization." Sarah looked out at the stars, thinking of all the beings who had died to make this moment possible. Admiral Rodriguez, who had sacrificed her ship to prove that humans would not yield. Captain Martinez, who had turned an asteroid into a weapon to protect Earth's children. Thousands of others whose names were carved into memorial walls throughout Accord space. They had died so that others could live free. Now their sacrifice was bearing fruit beyond anything they could have imagined. "Authorization granted," Sarah said quietly. "Tell them to carry our message of peace to the stars, and remind them that they represent not just humanity, but all free beings in this galaxy." As the ships launched toward the unknown, carrying the hopes and dreams of 400 species, Sarah Chen smiled. The future was uncertain, full of challenges and possibilities in equal measure. But for the first time in galactic history, that future belonged to all of them. The cosmos had been reborn, and it was beautiful.